All right, good to see you guys. Hey, I'm so thankful to be here. And a quick little bit about me. This is my family, my wife Bryn, my kids Trey and Eden, and there's us just having a good time in Hawaii. And we live out here in San Diego now. We moved out here 4 years ago. I started a team in Phoenix, and we built that up to, it's like an $80 million team, and always wanted to live in San Diego. And because it's beautiful here, and Phoenix 4 months of the year is pretty awful. So we finally made it out, and 4 years ago, and just loved it. I ran my team remotely in Phoenix, and that was awesome. I enjoyed it, but I was really missing after about 4 years. I was like really missing having people to like have lunch with, and like I was just on Zooms all the time. And I wanted to start a team in San Diego, but I did not want to go get a real estate license, because it's terrible, getting a real estate license, as you guys have all experienced. So, and I didn't want to get back. I like running a team. I like all the stuff it takes to run a team. I like that better than selling homes. And so I was kind of stuck. And one of the reasons I'm here to share today is because I met Dan Beer, and he introduced me to EXP through another friend of his named Jennifer Weiner, and that is what allowed me to start a team here without getting a real estate licenses. I was able to move to EXP, and because it's national, I could run a team in anywhere I want, really. And I am so thankful to Dan for him allowing me to get that started. We started our team in San Diego, and our first year did 40 million, which I'm super thrilled with. I think this year that San Diego team will do 100 million. And it's been awesome. And I cannot thank Dan enough. He has shared so much with me. Him and Kyle have been extraordinarily generous with me. There's 3 or 4 of your top people in the room here who've all spent time with me in your offices, helping me out, giving me ideas, sharing things with me. And I would not be where I am today if it weren't for you guys and for your team and for Dan and for the culture he's created, where like any one of you at any given time would be happy to sit down and share what you're doing that works. That's awesome. And it's rare and unique. And so you guys have something really special here. And so I just want to encourage you. You got found an amazing team, an amazing team leader, and you guys have a great culture. So I'm like thrilled to be here and to share this with you. And I hope it's really a big benefit to you guys. All right, so here's just this is my San Diego team along with some of my virtual assistants. I just didn't have enough room on the slide to put everybody, but here's a few of them. And we're up to, I think, 40-ish people now, and about 20 of them are overseas, so we have a big overseas team. We have, I think now 10 agents in San Diego and around 10 in Phoenix, and we just started Las Vegas. So if you got buyers, sellers in Phoenix or Las Vegas, we would love to help them out. Brian, in fact, sent us a buyer last week. So we'd love to help them out. And there's just some of the crew here. And here's what we did in January. So 58 appointments set, 34 met, 31 signed, 38 under contract, and 18 closed. So pretty good, for in this market, it's a pretty crazy, like getting houses under contract is no small task, right? And so putting 38 under contract for a team our size, I'm pretty proud of. And so, we did like 300 deals last year. I mean, at this pace, I think we'll get 700 or so this year. So we are on a massive upward swing. And I figured out early on in the year that we needed to get very good at working with buyers. And so it is all I have been focusing on for several months now. It's all I've been teaching on, because I think it is the most important skill set to be good at right now as a real estate agent, because of where the market is and because I don't think the market's going to change anytime real soon. And so I'll talk more about that. But I think there is no more important skill for you guys to get really good at. Even those of you who are listing agents, this is still a critical skill to be good at, because just because you're doing listings doesn't mean you don't need to have your skills on both. And this is what it's like. You guys feel this way? Anybody else? Is it just me, or is everybody else crying at night too? It's a disaster. It's a disaster. You're just trying to survive. You're trying to make it through the week, and this is every night now. And it's, you're 3 or 4 drinks in, crying in your bed. So it's tough, right? It's really hard. And I cannot emphasize this enough. This is such a critical time to get good. And here's why. The market it's hard. It's hard to get an offer accepted. And more importantly, it's hard to get your buyers. Because I could teach you how to write good offers. It doesn't matter if your buyers won't write those offers, right? If I'm like, here's the perfect way to get this offer accepted. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter unless the buyer says, yep, okay, do it. Yes, sir, here I go. That's the skill. Getting your buyers emotionally on the page they need to be on to step up to the plate and to get the deal done. That's why we're doing the business we're doing. It's because we've gotten very good at convincing our buyers of what they need to be convinced of to go get a house right now. And here's the thing, we will do very well this year. We're gonna sell a lot of houses. Our agents are gonna make a lot of money because lots of other agents are not prepared to do the work required to get good. They're just gonna do this. They're gonna be doing this every night instead of going, I will do what it takes to get good. It's like anything else. If you play high school basketball, right? What do you make? How much money? Zero, right? Well, is it harder to play college basketball? Yeah, it's a lot harder. Is it harder to play pro basketball? It's way, way harder. And you get paid more. So it is good when things are hard. Do you want to play in the juniors where there's not a whole lot of money, or do you want to play in the big leagues? Well, if you want to play in the big leagues, you got to practice. You got to get good at this, right? So this will give you the skill set you need, but then also this is going to require a little bit of practice, a little bit of role play. I was talking to Dan this morning, and he was like, dude, we're committed to this. We're going to go for it. He was excited. So you got a team leader who's with you, who's going to provide all the back-end support required, and you'll see there is some of that required, but it's worth your time and energy to get really good at this. So let me start. Here's the first thing, you got to pre-sell yourself. So I'm going to approach this from the perspective of a Zillow Connect lead. So how many in the room are taking Zillow leads right now, working with Zillow leads? Okay, a lot, perfect, okay. That's the baseline, and I'm going to start there because that's, in my opinion, one of the harder people to get into escrow, is a Zillow Connect lead. Now there's other harder leads, but the ISAs are doing a lot of work getting those people warmed up. Eventually they get them on the phone with you, and so it's kind of the same as Zillow. And we approach them the same way as you do, I think. My understanding from what you do is, on a Zillow phone call, you get connected and they say, hey, our script is, hey, this is John, your Zillow Premier agent. I understand you want to see the house at 123 Main Street. When would you like to see that today? Is that your process, right? You go see him at the house. So that's the perspective, that's the point I'm going to come from, and we're going to walk through how to get that person into a signed buyer agreement. That's the end goal, and we're going to take it step by step. It's a 3-step process. Well, not really 4. This is kind of like pre-step. So pre-selling yourself is you've just took that call, you booked the appointment, you're going to show the house today at 3 o'clock. Now what? Okay, here's now what. I'm going to make this simple. So what we do is a quick video. I know Brian does this a lot, is if you're in front of your computer, I would do it just like this. There's an app you can get on your phone called Make It Big that will let you put their name on there so that you do a little bomb video or something saying, hey, Frank, hey, they know it's not a canned video, it's from you. And you just say, hey, looking forward to seeing you at the house, can't wait. And I'm going to show you in a second the Highnote we use. You guys, I know you have Highnote. How many of you are actually using Highnote that you're aware of? Okay, so it's a tool you guys have that I'm going to explain that you're underutilizing. Super valuable tool. And so you guys have it, and I'm working with Dan to even scale that up a little bit. But it's a valuable tool, and this will go in your Highnote too. And it's just a quick video saying, hey, I'm excited to see you. I've prepared some information that'll help you beat out other buyers to the best new listings. And so take a look at that, and I'll see you today at 3 o'clock. And that's what the video says, something along those lines. But send some kind of video. Just, hey, here, I can't wait to meet you. It's going to be great. If you're obviously doing it on your phone, you can't use that app and say their name because you're using your phone to record the video. But it's a quick little video. And then we use Highnote. And you guys don't need to go to this because you've already got Highnote here as a team. But I guess you could check this out, and it'll show what we have in our Highnote. But it's basically the stuff I'm going to go through today, which is our handbook. And Dan has this, and I think he's working on getting, if you don't already have this, something very similar to this set up. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you how we do this, but it's just page by page going through that book. And the Highnote does the same basic thing. It pre-sells us. It explains how great we are. And why you would want to use us. So I'm going to do this part really quickly, then we'll get into the meat of this. Here's another one. Next, what you want to do is send them a text message when you're like an hour, half hour from the house saying, hey, Frank, I'm stopping by Starbucks on the way. What can I get you? Don't say, hey, would you like me to get you a coffee? That's not going to work because it's human psychology, right? If I'm over, at Brian's house and he's like, hey, John, would you like me to bake a bunch of cookies from scratch for you? I'm going to be like, no, that's insane. That's like an hour-long job, and you got to go to this. No, I don't need you to do that. But if he hands me a plate of cookies and says, would you like a cookie? I'm going to eat 7 of them, right? So yeah, so that's where we want to, even if you're not going to Starbucks, you are now, right? And so, hey, I'm on the way. What can I get you? You'll get 80% of the people will say something. And now you've got a little favor on your hands, right? You've curried a little favor in their eyes. You're bringing a Starbucks along with you. When you show up, now you're already a little bit different. You've sent the Highnote, you've sent the video, you're bringing a Starbucks. You're already different than the 5 other Zillow agents they've already tried to look at houses with, right? So you want to be different. You want to really stand apart. So you got to pre-sell yourself. Real quick checklist. Did you send the Highnote? Did you send a separate personalized video using that little app if you're in front of your computer? And then did you offer to bring a Starbucks? Real simple. And this, Dan already has it, and I've got this presentation we're recording now. I've also done this on Zoom and recorded it along with the slides and the whole thing. So don't feel like you need to get this all at once. It's a lot. This is going to be an hour worth of stuff that you're trying to pick up the big picture here. You're trying to pick up some of the mindsets and the philosophies. I've also got scripts that I've sent Dan too, so you don't need to memorize the scripts, but it is super helpful to take notes. It'll help you remember more, but don't feel like you have to get it all. You're not going to get it all. Okay, the 5-minute drive-by meeting. This is a Zillow lead. You got 5 minutes, you're showing one house. Obviously, we're trying to show 2 or 3 if we can. Doesn't always work out that way, but I'm presuming you're going to show one house. That's all you can get away with. They didn't want to see other houses. They were busy, whatever. Okay, you got 5 minutes to get something done with this person, to convince them of something. And the goal, this part is helpful, I think, to write down, take notes if you're taking notes. The goal of the 5-minute meeting is to get a next appointment. That's it. That's the whole goal. Get a second appointment. And this is how you're going to do that. Your first opener is, you're looking around the house. You've showed up with your Starbucks, right? Here's your drink. You're walking around the house. Hey, here's a look at the kitchen, whatever you say, And hey, how long have you been looking for a house? You're just having a normal conversation, right? Like very, very casual. How long have you been looking for a house? And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them to a pain point. All marketing, here's a good philosophy to kind of keep in mind. All marketing is empathetically magnifying the pain these people are experiencing, communicating that there is a pain point, there's a problem, and then solving the problem. Every Instagram ad you ever clicked on convinced you had a problem, you had a need, you had something you had to have, and without it, there was a problem, and then they solved your problem for you. That's what you're doing here. And so if this doesn't bring out a pain point, if they don't communicate, it's hard, this sucks, I've written offers, if they don't get around to that, this question will. Have you heard about how hot the market is? Everybody's heard about how hot the market is. So they're going to say, yeah, and now they're going to communicate, even if they just say yes. You've gotten them to a point of now, yeah, there's a problem, the market's hot. If you're a buyer, it sucks, it's hard. And this is like national Super Bowl commercials they're talking about. This is like well-known fact, okay? This is a huge advantage for you, the fact that it's so hard, because they know it's hard. And 5 years ago, when you could wander around for months looking at the same house, it was a lot easier for buyers to get a house. Now it's very hard. They need a pro. They need someone like you who's really good. So they're going to communicate however they do that the market's hot, and they understand that. Now, here comes the solution. And this is where you show up to the house, you give them the Starbucks, and you're just holding on to this, your buyer book. And hey, have you heard about how hot the market is? Yeah, it's crazy. It's insane, right? Yeah, I know. Hey, here's what's awesome is we actually have a list, and you open up to this page, which is the first page. This is an old buyer book, but the current one, the first page is this, hey, here's our secret sellers map. This is really cool. Our team has access to hundreds of off-market properties. These are properties that are not on the market yet, but they will be soon. You can't find them on Zillow. You can't find them anywhere else. And a lot of them are beautiful properties being flipped, that kind of thing. And maybe one of these might be a fit for you. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you're looking for in a home, and I can see if any of our off-market properties might be a fit. And that's your solution to their problem, which is that the market is hot, is you have access to houses that nobody else has. So let me talk through that. I'm going to come back to the script, but let me walk you through this, and you guys are in good shape because you're at EXP and you're with Dan. So how do you find off-market properties? I mean, there's kind of five or six different sources. You probably have your internal team source. Coming soon listings is going to be a big one. And then we do a couple things. So we have Raven, which we're all in San Diego kind of working on getting systems, not perfect, but that's a system that should be sourcing properties, off-market properties, that all the coming soon listings I have and that Kyle has and all of the big team leaders at EXP in San Diego are theoretically putting our coming soon listings on there because we can share them. We're all in the same brokerage. But you're not getting into this in the meeting. This is for you guys. When you're talking to somebody at a house, you don't talk about any of this. I'm on a big team and we're connected to a lot of big house flippers in town. We just got a lot of these properties that are coming soon. I mean, that's simple. You don't need to get all into the weeds. Another way you can do it is you can pull your tax system. I forget what it's called in San Diego, where it's like you can see all the transactions, all the public records of homes that have been purchased. You can pull up, like Opendoor is really scaling up here, and they've been in Phoenix for years, and they buy a lot of houses. And you just pull all the houses Opendoor's bought in the last week or two. They're not gone yet, and figure out those and see if any of those might be a fit for your person. And then what? What do you do, right? Like, okay, let's say you find one on Opendoor. Now what? Or on the tax records that Opendoor bought. Well, that's where you leverage your relationship, with Dan and the different team leaders on your group, because they're going to know people at Opendoor, or he knows me and I know people at Opendoor, who we can say, okay, great. When that house goes live, It's not like you're going to go sell your client that house before it goes live. That's not going to happen. Same thing with all of my house flipper connections. Like what happens is if we get a house, and we've done this before, where one of my flippers is going to sell a house, we want it, we tell them we want it, they go out, get 50 offers, call us, say, okay, pay 10 grand more than this and it's yours, right? So that's a huge advantage. Now we didn't get it for any cheaper, but we got the house. That's all that matters in this market. So you're leveraging the relationships you have here as a team, with your team leader, with other people at EXP, to get access to those properties in a preferential way. So that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing, I don't know, 10% of the time maybe. 90% of the time we're going to sell them a house on MLS, just a normal deal. But what we need to do is convince them we have access to the magic thing that nobody else has access to. So again, we're trying to get a second appointment. How do you get a second appointment? You show them the goods. Hey, here's this thing you need. And to get that, we're going to need to keep having this conversation. That's what you're doing in this. So here's the stuff I just went through. Okay, so now you're just talking about the stuff they want in a house. Great, sit out at the kitchen counter, the table, go out in the driveway, whatever. Hey, here's all this stuff they want in a house. And this is where you're excited, you're fired up for them. This is not a time for you to be realistic. Like, yeah, I want a $500,000 house in Coronado. Okay, dummy, sure, great. No, that sounds amazing. I want one of those too. That's great, yeah. How many bedrooms? 9 bedrooms? That sounds like enough, Just be excited for them. This is a first date. All you're trying to do is get a second appointment. Like, you're not trying to marry this person, right? You're not trying to figure out if they're the smartest person on the planet. You're just trying to figure out if we can get a second date. And so you're excited and fired up, and that sounds awesome. Oh, this is going to be great. I can't wait to find this for you. It's wonderful. The time for realism and pain is coming. That's coming in a couple meetings from now, which I will explain to you. But for now, we're just trying to get a second appointment. That's all that matters. You got the Starbucks and the secret list, and you're excited about all their stuff they want to say. Okay, great. You take all their stuff down. This is 5 minutes, right? Nothing major. And then at that point, you're going to close. And maybe you have time to keep going right then. Maybe you're closing for an appointment like now, because they're not in a hurry. They're happy, and I'll kind of walk through the language for that. But oftentimes they are. They got somewhere to go. You're getting a vibe that they're not trying to spend an hour with you. Okay, great. You're just going to close for the second appointment. And this is the language if you want to close now. Hey, do you have 20 minutes or so to review the list and see if anything we have might be a fit? Again, you're not offering like a buyer meeting. You're offering, hey, let's spend 20 minutes and see if any of our properties might be a fit for you. And if they say yes, great. Then we're going to phase 2 of the meeting, which I'll go through in a second. If they say no, I'm busy, or you could just tell it's not going to happen, then you're going to book a next appointment. So you're going to say, okay, option B, we're going to do it later. Okay, I'll review our list. So no, I'm busy, whatever, can't do it. Okay, I'm going to review our list and see what might work for you. I also have a few other houses in mind that I think you might like. When would be a good time to go see those houses and review the coming soon homes that I find? And so you're booking a second appointment to see houses. Super simple. You're probably already doing this to some degree. And the other thing you're probably doing is setting them up on an MLS search, right? Is that kind of what's happening? You're going to start, that's fine. You could do that. But what you've told them is there is this other list that you've got to get, to get to that list, you got to talk to me. I'm the off-market source. There is no, we're not going to email those to you. So you just review that and you book an appointment to go see houses again and to review the list. When you do set that, when you actually have that appointment, what you're going to do is do that first. So, okay, great, we're going to go set up the house. We're going to go see 2 MLS listings at 123 Main Street, whatever. At 2 o'clock, we're going to meet at 1:30 at Starbucks, real close to that other house, so that we can review all the off-market properties that I find for you. And that's when you're going to do your buyer meeting, is that half hour before you set up showings. So that's meeting number 1. What objections, what challenges, what questions in your mind are like, that's not going to work, dude. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what they're going to say. What are those? So yeah, I know I haven't seen anything, or I don't want to see anything. I'll let you know if I see something good, something like that, right? Yeah, totally. That's awesome. Please do that. And here's the thing: if there's nothing, if I send you a few houses and you don't like those, we don't need to go see houses. But but let's make sure we sit down together so that we can go over the off-market stuff I find. Because again, those aren't on Zillow. I can't email those to you. There's no listing for those. They're not even listed yet. So let's make sure we do that. So we'll just set the appointment for that. And if there's nothing you want to see, then that's no problem. We'll go through the list together. And is everyone going to want to see your off-market property? No, but a lot of people will. And another objection would be, can't you just email them to me? No, we have these rules. Our MLS, it's called like clear cooperation. We're not allowed to like email out listings of properties that aren't actually listed yet. It violates all these rules. We just can't do it. So we can only show our clients those properties. So we just got to do that in person. So how does Tuesday at 3 work? And all objection handling, you guys probably know this form, all objection handling is like acknowledging the objection and then taking back control of the conversation, right? So like, yes, I get it. How does Thursday at 2 work? All you're trying to do is get a second appointment. Now, worst case scenario, they push, they don't want to meet, okay, you're no worse off than you were before. You're still going to do the same thing you were doing, email and listings, and if they want to go see houses, fine. But you're trying to get them to this next stage of like, yes, let's sit down, let's have a conversation, let's see if any of our stuff works for you. It happens all the time where someone tells me they got to be within these 3 streets or whatever, and we sit down and I show them a few options that they just didn't even ever consider. We had a guy last week up in Del Mar. Showed him a house. He ended up buying a house in Chula Vista because he fell in love with it. So, right now it's so crazy. The inventory is so small. I'd love to spend a little time just maybe showing you some things you haven't even considered yet. It's great objection. And that's a real story. Like, you guys probably have those. You showed somebody a Zillow house wherever, in North County, and they bought in South Bay. Okay, that happens, right? So, and that is, by the way, what you're doing. Eventually, we will get to actually showing them off-market properties. And when you do that, you never want to just show up and say, yeah, I looked at everything, there's nothing for you. You always got to show them something. So, hey, here's the 100 I looked at. These 50 just don't work at all because they're way overpriced. But here's 10 that are in your price range. Let's at least consider these. Maybe these are decent options for you. Could we maybe go over to this street or that, whatever, Could you live without that 3rd bedroom? This is a crazy market. The other thing from a philosophical standpoint in this market, and I'm going to talk about this later, every month your people wait to buy a house costs them a dollar amount. Let's say it's a $1 million house, right? 20% appreciation, that's $200,000 a year. It's costing them. That's real. That's actual math. That's a fact. Okay? So, helping them understand. Now, you're not doing this at this meeting. This is the kind of the next meeting. But for you to understand it is good for an objection like that of like, hey, the market's so insane, and right now, like, it's 20% appreciation. I'd love for you to expand your options a little bit. Let me show you a few things you maybe haven't thought of, because the reality is if we can get you into a house sooner, then you can start riding this wave of 20% appreciation. That's, at your price point, that's like $200,000 a year. Let's get you on the wave. And then at least you're in the game. And maybe down the road, we find you that perfect 3-bedroom, the whatever you need, but you weren't just waiting around losing $10,000 a month hunting for the perfect house. Let's at least expand your maybe some options for you. Would that be okay? Does that sound fair? We'll talk a lot more about that. Okay, we also have little gifts. If you guys aren't doing this, I'd encourage the team to kind of get behind this. We have these little local gifts. It's all local stuff. San Diego, sunscreen, keychain, whatever, stuff that local artisans created. And one of the marketers on our team put together, and it's just a nice little gift. And this is not, I don't walk in and give this to them first thing, like this weird, like, here's your drink and your gift, and, please use me, Like, you walk in, you've got this in your hand, you've got the gift, whatever, you just set it on the kitchen counter and you do your thing, you show the house, whatever, and then on the way out, oh, hey, by the way, I've got this great little gift. We'd like to support local business in San Diego. Just want to say welcome. Welcome to the area. We're super excited to work together. So some nice little gifts we put together for you there. Super simple, kind of a side thing, right? But again, it's differentiating you, making you look a little bit different than everybody else. Same process in open house, by the way. No different. Someone walks in the house. We do 2 things. If it's just one person, literally I'm having the exact same conversation. How's it going? Have you heard how the market? Same exact thing. If there's 50 people there, we have these boards made up, which I would encourage you guys to work through, and they're big. They're like probably about that big. And they can scan with their phone, and so the offer would be like, hey, great to see you. I'm John, so happy you're here. Take a look at the house. Also, we want to make sure we get you a copy of our secret seller list. All the houses we have that are off market, we got a couple hundred right now that are not available for sale anywhere else. They're not online, you can't find them anywhere, but we have this great list. I'd love to get that to you. So just scan that with your phone and we'll get that list to you. And then you go to the next one, right? Because you got 50 people.
Where does that, when they scan it, where does it take you?
Pulls up a text message on their phone, outgoing text message to whoever's hosting the open house. So every agent has their own. And so it goes to Brian, and that text pulls up and it says, hey, Brian, please send me the off-market home list. And by the way, do they get the list? Of course not. They got to talk to Brian to get the list, Like there's no auto reply, here's the list link. No, all I wanted a real phone number. That'll get a real phone number. Instead of like sign in to make sure the seller's dog is safe, Come on, nobody buys that, right? Make a real offer. That's a real offer and a real call to action. Just scan the thing. Everyone's used to scanning QR codes, made a comeback during COVID. So we're like, we all get QR codes now. So
Just scan.
yeah. So we just want to get their information. It's that simple, right? Now you finish your open house with 10, 15, 20 text messages, people to follow up with. All right, so driveway meeting. Did I offer off-market properties, get their search criteria, but not show them houses? Set the next appointment. That's it. You're just trying to set the next appointment. Super simple. Or continue on into the next appointment if they've got time. You just keep going. The kitchen table. I don't know. What are you guys doing? If people have time, they got a little bit of time. Where are you meeting people? What do you do next? Do you go to Starbucks? Do you sit in the house? Yeah. So you make some kind of, hey, why don't we go? They already have a Starbucks. You're like, hey, let me get you some more coffee. We're gonna get you fired up. But no, I think that's the way to do it. Hey, there's a plate. Let's go sit down and we'll look. And now the offer is we're gonna look through our off-market properties. Okay. So now you're either at Starbucks or you're at the kitchen table, or it's next Tuesday, and you're having the next meeting. The goal of the second meeting is to get a buyer agreement signed. Now you're selling. Now you're trying to get them to agree to work with you exclusively. That's goal number 2, get a buyer meeting. So this is a 20-minute buyer consultation. In the day we were doing like hour-long slugfest with our buyers. Let's bring you into the office and we're gonna just turn up the heat lamp and get you to sign all this stuff and tell you for an hour how great our transaction coordinating department is. Nobody cares, right? Now during COVID, we all figured out, no, people are instant, right? Amazon can have a brand new dishwasher to your house in 2 hours. So we got to figure out how to tell people in less time why we're awesome, okay? So you got to do it in 20 minutes. And this is what I suggest. I've distilled down what I think are the most important things that set us apart. This is the scripting in the beginning because you just want to see where you're at with the people. And this is a conversation. This is a back and forth. This is not you selling. This is you having a conversation. Every page I'm going through, and this is in order on the book, every page I'm going through is question and then me answering with my answer to that question, right? So are you familiar with how real estate agents work? And they say whatever they say. Hey, I'm going to explain a few things that all good agents do to help you find a home, and then a few things that really set our team apart, that make us different, special, unique. And this is kind of the basics. I'm just trying to start with some kind of foundation and also plant a seed of doubt that not everybody is the same. So we'll help you secure the best financing, find the best home for your needs, negotiate for you, no hassle. This is all, and I'm doing this quicker than I would at a meeting. Maybe in a meeting I would take 3 minutes on this, not a long time. So this is all kind of stuff normal agents would do. We do it exceptionally well. We're fantastic at this. We're the best team in San Diego at this. But we've also got a few things that are really, really unique to us that no one else is doing. Again, it's conversation, right? So you turn the page, or you could be doing this on a slide deck. I like the book better. So you turn the page. Hey, have you heard about how hot the market is? You've already asked this question. I get that, but we're going to ask it again. We're going to reignite that. About how many offers houses are getting right now. And they will say yes. Hey, getting your offer accepted is the hardest part of buying a home right now. Take a look at the photos and text. Most homes get 20 offers, meaning 19 agents lost. And then whatever your stat is. Last month, our team got 29 deals, offers accepted. Our success is due to our buyer battle plan. Completing a plan is one of the first things we do with our client. Screenshot you guys probably saw on social media in San Diego. I don't know, it's 100, 150 people outside, cars down the line, road at an open house. And so I got a picture of that and put it on this document. And then I got a couple screenshots from people on my team who got their offers denied, and they got beat by $100,000 with no contingencies. They just got smoked. And so I got a couple screenshots of that and put them on here. And so I'm not going to actually complete this buyer battle plan at this point. This is not a client yet. I said here, this is something we do with our clients, right? They are not yet a client. So all I'm doing now is selling why we're so different. And the biggest reason we're different is because we have a plan. And so I'm going to say it's crazy. Look at these screenshots. People right now are waiving all their contingencies, meaning no inspections, nothing. All cash offers. It's insanity. Even in this environment, we got 29 houses last month. So we're getting really good at this. And the reason is because we go in with a plan. What I don't want to have happen to you is we go and we show you a house and we're just kind of winging it. And you find a house, maybe there's a few you don't like, and then there's one you love, and you're fired up about it, and it's Saturday. And now we're up at Saturday night at God knows what time trying to figure out a plan on how to go win this deal. I don't want that to happen. The likelihood of success is extremely low if we're just winging it. So what we want to do is come up with a proactive plan to help you be successful in this market. And as Lao Tzu says here, every battle is won before it's ever fought, or Sun Tzu, every battle is won before it's fought. So we want to come up with a strategic plan, and this is working really well for us right now. So we're not going to wing it with you. We are going to have a plan for you to win. I'm very confident we can get you a house. And then you just move on. This is not a planning time. This is a selling time. So you just move on. This is something we do, and you guys can figure out if this is something you want to do or not. This is a new thing we're doing, so it might be a terrible idea. We'll see. 100% satisfaction guarantee or our commission back. And so what we do is, if at any point up until the day before closing you are not happy with our services, we will give you all of our commission. No questions asked, nothing. And we haven't had anybody call us out on this yet. Nobody's been unhappy enough to ask us for their money back day before closing. But if they do, not only will we give them a check, we will get one of those big ass checks and get a picture of us giving them the money, so that on our website we can put, listen, we're really doing this. We're not kidding around. We're going to prove it. Here's the guy who was pissed off at us with a frown, holding a big check. We're going to make him feel like a real special guy for getting us our money back, right? So again, you talked to Dan about this, and we lawyered this big time and got it all written up right, and and the broker was like, "You're insane, dude, but it's okay if you want to do it." So anyways, we'll see how that goes. Wish me luck. 2 months, something like that. So. And I asked all my agents, I'm like, you guys don't have to do this. If you want, we can pull it out of the thing. And they're like, no, we'll try it. So we'll see how it goes. This one I really suggest everybody should do. You'll love your next home, or we'll sell it for free. This, back to the question. Actually, sorry, skip the question here. So the question would just be like, hey, when you're working with a real estate agent, how do you know whether they're going to work out or not? Whether it's going to be good. If the experience is going to be any good. Have you heard about people having bad experience with realtors? Something like that. And they say, yeah, this so-and-so had this, whatever. And it's, yeah, that's totally, you're empathizing with the pain they just communicated. And you're saying, yeah, the reason, it's really frustrating. And the fact is you don't know how it's going to go until it's all done. And so we're so convinced that you're going to be thrilled with our services that if at any point you're not happy up until the day before closing, we'll give you our 100% of our commission back. No questions asked. It's a pretty powerful risk reversal. Next question would be, so as you're buying a house, what are you concerned about? What are you worried about as it relates to the home itself, the actual physical house? Like, what concerns do you have about home ownership? And they might say the plumbing leaking, or paying for the roof, or the whatever, the neighbors are going to suck, et cetera. And then you would empathize at that point. Totally, that's a super scary thing. You're going from being a renter to a homeowner, or maybe you're buying a bigger house or whatever. You don't know if the neighbors are going to be pains in the butt. So we want to make sure that you know that we stand behind you. And if for any reason during the first year you own the home, if you're not happy with that house, we will sell it for you at no charge. Totally free. We'll list it for you at no charge. We'll make sure we get you a property you love. And the only condition on this, I wouldn't say this in the meeting, but just so you know, the only condition on this is that they are buying a house with us. Next question to the customer would be, so okay, let's say you're going to buy a toaster. You turn to this page. Let's say you're going to buy a toaster on Amazon. What's the first thing you're going to look at? You're reviewing toasters, the reviews, right? So they're going to say the reviews. Then you say, yeah, totally. Here's the thing. If you're buying a toaster and you care about the reviews, you're talking about buying like $1 million house here. You don't want to just take my word for it, that I'm awesome. I'm telling you how great I am. It's all great, but feel free to Google us. Check us out online. You'll find literally thousands of reviews about how great we are. You're going to find a few crazies in there too, some bad ones. That's fine, just so you know that's all real. These are real experiences people have had. I think you'll be very impressed with what you see. You don't have to take my word for it. Working with me is low risk. So next question, how much does it cost to hire a real estate agent? That's your question you're going to ask them. So like, hey, do you know how real estate agents get paid? And again, this is a page in the buyer book. Do you know how real estate agents get paid? They say whatever they say. And you say, hey, here's the deal. What's great is you don't actually have to pay us anything as the buyer's agent. We're paid by the seller. It literally does not cost you a dime. We're going to do all this great stuff I talked about, the commission back guarantee, and help you find off-market properties and sell your house for free if you're not happy with it. We're going to negotiate all that stuff. We're going to do all that for you. And it's not going to cost you a dime. All we ask for in return is your loyalty. Does that sound fair? That's your close. All we ask for in return is your loyalty. Does that sound fair? And everyone says yes. Because, it'd be a weird thing to say no to. And then we say, okay, well, great, let's not shake on it like these weirdos. I don't know how you botch a handshake that bad. Like that's a real photo of I don't know how that went so awesome, but Barack Obama and his pal. He's the only one who looks cool. Everybody else is really messing it up. So so I just thought that was funny and put that in there. I know there are agents out there who are actually promising to rebate some of their commission back to their buyers. And I get that could be appealing, but the reality is in this market, you're buying what, $1 million house? Okay, so $1 million house is going to cost, if you wait a year to buy that house, it'll be worth 1.2. So that means every month you're losing like $18,000 that you don't buy a house. And so my question to you is, would you rather get the 5 or 8 or 10 grand back from this other realtor who is by definition discounting their services? They're a discount person. Like what they're doing to get clients is like their unique proposition is they'll do it cheaper. Like, do you think that that person is more likely to get you a house faster? Or do you think that with what I've explained today, I'm more likely to get you a home faster? Because really, what you don't want to do is trip over the 18,000 or the 40,000 or the 60,000. You know, you don't want to trip over that to get 8,000. And so I would argue, I would consider, if I was you, that in this market, it is much more important to be working with the person who has access to more houses. I explained all these off-market properties we have. Like we literally have more houses available than other realtors do. And I would consider that to be a much more powerful asset to a realtor than being able to discount the fees. A shorter way you could say that would be, I totally get that. I understand people are offering discounts right now. Does that agent have access to off-market properties? Did they show you the off-market properties that they have access to? Most of them will say no, but let's say they said yes. Okay, great. So that's awesome. How many? Like what are we talking about here? Because I think in this market, the most important thing is you getting into houses first and having access to most houses. Would you agree? Yeah. So how many do they have available? We have, and they say whatever, and we have hundreds. So it's unlikely you're going to run up against somebody like that who's communicated a value proposition, which is, I have houses nobody else has. But you might run into that, and at sometimes you just can't win them all. But that's the way I would handle that. In general, people who are like, no, I'm working with other realtors or whatever, I'm going to work with the listing agent. If you bring me a house, I'll buy that house. Anybody who's doing that game. The response to that would be, hey, I totally understand, and if that's what you feel like is best for you, I totally get that. Unfortunately, we're only allowed to, because of the clear cooperation rule, we're only allowed to share the off-market properties we have with our clients, with people who are working with us, we have a relationship with. And that relationship you can cancel at any time. I'm going to kind of walk through the agreement here. It's cancelable, it doesn't cost you a dime. In fact, it's to your benefit to sign it because my commission is on the line all the way up till the day we close, which is another thing I would say if I was running the commission back guarantee. And I can only provide these properties to my clients. And so I get it if that's not for you, I totally understand, but I really think that you're going to be best served in this environment working with the agent that has the most access to properties. So would you be open to at least exploring what it would look like to be a client of ours? Because you have to keep holding that carrot out, the off-market houses. That has to be the thing, that like only the real clients get that. All I'm trying to do is get people to sign up. I am making this as friction-free as possible. So we are not putting any roadblocks in the way, meaning let's talk about financing because that's a great time. And let's, how much money do you make? That's not uncomfortable, right? I'm like, this is a first date, right? So we're not talking about how much money you make. We're talking about how I'm listening to all your great ideas and telling you how awesome they are and communicating how I'm going to help you get the thing of your dreams. The reality is you may have no prayer on God's green earth of actually getting a house. This may be a totally unqualified prospect. That's possible. And you might waste some time doing this. But eventually you'll get enough people signed up. And if you haven't done a lot of this, I think it's okay to practice on people who might not end up going anywhere. Why not practice on the duds that aren't going to, that way when you get to the good people, the people who can actually qualify, not good, like everyone's good. We're all wonderful, made in God's image. That's great. But you get to the real clients. You've practiced a few on ones that it didn't really matter that you didn't go so good. The whole premise is we're going to sit down and review off-market properties, right? We haven't done that yet. And if at some point they're like, hey, what's all this stuff about? Sure. What about the off-market properties? Then it's back to that same language of we're actually not, because of clear cooperation, we're not allowed to share our off-market properties because they're not actually listings yet. We don't have written agreements yet. So we can only share those with our clients. Let me explain what it looks like to become a client. Again, you keep the goal in mind. What's the goal of this meeting? Who remembers? First meeting was the second appointment. This is the second appointment. Get an agreement signed. That's the goal. Like I want you to pretend like you get $1 million for getting the agreement signed. Like that's the whole goal. Well, if that was true, someone was going to waltz in with $1 million just because you got the thing signed. Would you say anything about pre-qualifying? No, you'd say whatever you had to say to get the freaking thing signed, right? Now, I get it. I understand that that's not always going to make sense. You're working with tons of buyers, et cetera. But I want to give you the easy path first. And then if you guys want to go on the ropes course and get all crazy, great. But, and here's the thing. You guys got to get good at this, dude, because right now a lot of you are working with buyers without getting agreements signed. So my team does the same thing. I'm working on them with this. What's happening to co-brokes? Your co-brokes, are they going up or down? The buyer, what do you call them? What you get paid as a buyer agent. Is that going up or down? You think that's going to stop? when the market gets soft? I don't think so. All of us greedy listing agents are like, ooh, this is nice. I can get a buyer's agent to come show this house for $8. Awesome. Let's keep that train rolling. Like I'm telling you, it doesn't work that way. It's not like, oh, the market gets softer and it does not work that way. You start taking money off the table, it stays off the table. So what does that mean? It means you've got to get good at getting these signed. Because what happens, I'll walk through this in a second, but here's what this signed to me. You understand at least our fee of at least 2.5% of the purchase price on the property will be paid to eXp Realty by the seller of the property you purchase at closing. So we're putting in there 2.5% co-broke. This agreement is good for a period of 1 year and will be automatically renewed. And then we added this. This is not the newest version. The newest version says if there's a deficiency, meaning if the seller is only paying us 1% or $8 or whatever, we'll take it. We'll take whatever we can get. This is an insane market, and we will take whatever we can get. We're just trying to get people houses right now. And it is not possible to get seller concessions. Anybody been around long enough to know what that is? What a seller concession is, right? Like you used to get the sellers to pay for the lender fees and all these other fees. That will happen again. The market will get soft, and we will get sellers to pay concessions. That's going to happen in, 2-3 years. When that happens, this fee will go from 2.5% to 2.75 to 3, and the language that says we'll take what we can get will go away entirely, and we will get up to 3.5. We'll get whatever we think we can charge. And it will work because we've gotten good when I'm asking my agents right now to get this signed, and this says basically nothing. You can cancel it at any time. We'll take what we can get. In fact, we'll give you our commission back if you're not happy. If you can't get this signed, I don't know what to tell you. Like this is, you need to learn how to be a better realtor. I mean, that's the honest truth. And what we will do is as the market softens, this document will get more and more airtight so that when the listing agents are still offering 2%, we're charging 3.5. And we're getting that in the form of seller concessions. So that's what we've done this before. When the market was softer, where we were charging the buyers more, and the buyers didn't have to pay it because we got the sellers to pay it. So the listing agents said, okay, we're going to get 6% and we're only going to give away 2 or whatever they were giving away. And we said, no problem. We'll sell for sale by owners. We'll sell anything. We don't care because we've got a buyer agreement that says we're going to get our 3.5%. And we are good enough negotiators to get that from the seller. And I'm telling you, this works. And you've got to get good now. If you can't, I just don't know what to tell you. If you can't get this signed, if you can get good at this skill now, it will pay you massive rewards down the road when everyone else is working for nickels. And you're like, I don't care what the co-broke is. It doesn't matter. Irrelevant. Is that a pretty powerful position to be? That's a game changer. Again, the goal is get the agreement signed, partly because you need to get good at getting the agreement signed because it'll change your career. It'll change your career. You'd be shocked how much of a difference this will make. So then you go over this with the buyer. And this is not a BBA. California's agreement, whatever, scary language. If you don't buy a house, we're going to murder your dog and you're going to have to come on over with all this cat. I don't know what it says, but it's super scary lawyer language, right? This is sales language that I had my lawyer stamp. And it is not at all meant to be a legal agreement. This entitles me to basically nothing. What it really does is it helps me get some kind of commitment and it helps me get good at getting deals done. Or getting a buyer agreement signed. So that's a sales document. You guys can, if you can get BBA signed, fine, that's great. But this isn't. I'm shooting for the lowest common denominator. I'm trying to get the easiest thing signed. I've met with teams who are getting all kind of cool stuff done, and it's, as you get better, you can do that. You can get transaction fees. You guys maybe charge transaction fees. You can get those put in here. You can get the buyer paying those.
So you add those in here if you have.
If you were doing transaction fees, you'd put that in here. Yeah. So hey, so the close would go from instead of nothing. All it costs you is, it costs you nothing. All I ask you for a return on your loyalty. So all that so we're going to do all these great things for you, and all it costs is $7.95, or whatever your transaction fee is. Does that sound fair? So that's the way you would switch that close. Okay, so now you can show them off-market properties. They have run through your gauntlet and signed the document, and great. Now let's say they push back. They're like, nah, no can do, whatever. I got to review it with my wife. I need a lawyer look at it, whatever. Okay. Awesome. Then you're closing for the next appointment. Okay, great. I understand. Take your time. What would be a good time for us to meet up again and review the properties again? As I mentioned, unfortunately, we can't. The rules don't let us share this unless we've got to work with a client. So when would be a good time for us to meet back up and review off-market properties? So you're closing for a next appointment to review off-market homes. Yes?
How do you handle those Zillow costs where the property's already pending?
Yeah, so I'll also address oh, I only work with a listing agent. And it's always back to the same thing, which is houses. So yeah, this property unfortunately is pending, but and we get, sometimes we'll get, you guys might get this too, you get Zillow leads where it's like, it's kind of a bogus listing. It's like, oh yeah, you and 70 of your friends can share ownership in this house in Pacific Beach and it cost you $1,000. It's like, and you get that lead and you're like, yeah, it turns out you can't buy a house in Pacific Beach for $5,000, that doesn't work. So how do you deal with those? Or a pending property. Now I'm trying to close for a buyer meeting right away, like a Zoom meeting or whatever, because it's kind of blown on I can show them a house, right? The house I can't show. So I'm just trying to get to a meeting. Like, unfortunately, this one's pending. I'm sure you've seen this before. Again, magnify the pain, provide the solution. What's the pain? The house is pending. This is not the first time they've liked a house that was pending. So I'm sure you see this all the time. In fact, lots of properties sell before they even hit the market. And we have access to lots of those properties. We have a couple hundred houses off market right now that are not available on Zillow or anywhere else. They're coming soon. Maybe one of those would be a fit for you. Do you have a few minutes to tell me about what you're looking for in a home? And you're trying to get some, if it's a good, now if it's like a low dollar lead or whatever, you might just blow them off, right? But if it's like, oh no, this is like a real person, then I would start trying to buy or consult now. Now you're having the 5-minute meeting on the phone. Same process, same concept, just on the phone. Okay, we have off-market properties. Tell me what you're looking for. Close for the second appointment. Second appointment might be a Zoom, might be in person. If they're out-of-state buyer or whatever, it's going to be a Zoom, right? So same process, 5-minute meeting, close for the second appointment. Make sense? Can you do that? You guys can do this. In fact, a lot out-of-state buyers are awesome because most agents, their out-of-state buyer game sucks. So if you can be any good at that 5-minute close, I have properties no one else has, when can we talk about it? Maybe it's then. Maybe they're like, I don't know, how's now? Great, let me send you a Zoom link. And one of the things we always tell, like we're gonna have a Zoom meeting is like, hey, you don't need to have your camera on. Some people are like, camera shy, whatever. Like, you don't need to have your camera on. I'm just gonna share my screen with you so you can see the properties. So let's just jump on a Zoom. And again, you always show them something. Like, hey, don't say I don't have any that work. Something might work. So let's pitch what might work in that. So that means you gotta figure that out. You gotta practice that. And all of this stuff can be role played and should be role played. All these little closes and dialogues. And then here's what's next. So we set the next appointment at that point to like, now you're a client. Now we're gonna get into I've been selling, I'm sweet, everything's great, first date, whatever. Here comes the crazy mother-in-law, right? Here comes I'm actually a serial killer, right? Like this market is awful, and what you think is about to happen is not what's gonna happen. What's gonna happen is 10 times worse than you could ever imagine. Let's talk about it. That's what needs to happen next, right? Now we need to set expectations. So we're gonna set up an appointment for that. So this is like a card, literally like a half sheet of paper. And each agent has their own. This is Garrett and his bio and a bunch of great reviews and his info instead of a business card, just a more robust thing. And it says, okay, we're gonna set our next appointment to look at houses and review our off-market properties, and we're gonna complete our 10-minute jumpstart meeting. I told you at the beginning, this is 3 meetings. Goal of the first meeting, set the second appointment. Goal of the second meeting, get a VIP. Goal of the third meeting is set expectations. Help them understand how bad this is gonna be. That's the goal of the third meeting. So here's when we're gonna have that meeting. We're gonna go look at houses, and while we're at it, we're gonna have a meeting. We're gonna go through this stuff. In the meantime, sign our VIP buyer agreement if they haven't already signed it, send you a picture of it. It's in the book, and so people can just send you a text of it. Get a pre-qual. Now we're starting to talk about pre-qualification letters, cash offers, whatever you can do to help them get a buyer. Save my info in your phone. So now we're starting to go see houses, and maybe you showed them a few off market. They didn't work. You're communicating to them that we're going to go see what's on the MLS, and I'm going to keep looking because there's always new ones every week. And so when we meet, we're going to see what other off-market properties might be a fit, and we'll do our buyer jumpstart meeting. All right, so now here's the jumpstart meeting. Again, you could do all this at once. Like, we have people who call us, I'm sure you do too, who they just find us online or whatever, and they're like, hey, can you help me buy a house? And so we're going to do all this in one meeting in that scenario. Just going to run through the whole thing. And here's what buyers look like when they find out what 700 grand buys them. Not happy. You guys have seen this out in the field, right? You're like, hey, here's what it is. And they're like, this is awful. And it is, right? Their expectations are not at all being met. The market is insane. It's crazy. And so what we got to do is we got to help figure out what their why is. So now you're going to sit down and talk with them at the 10-minute meeting, or maybe you've just continued it. It's one big, long meeting. But at some point, you got to set expectations. Also, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, this is a conversation that some of you need to have with buyers you're already working with, who are not doing what it takes to get a deal done. They need to have a come to Jesus talk with you of like, hey, Frank, how's this going for us? Not so good. I got a plan, and I'll talk to some scripting about that. But one of the things you want to figure out is why. Like, why are you trying to buy a house? It's not because they want granite countertops or they need a nice open kitchen. That is not why they're buying a house. Why they're buying a house is some emotional need. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, somewhere in there is why they're buying a house. And so you got to discover that, so that when they figure out that the house they want to buy is impossible to buy, you can remind them of why they want to buy a house in the first place. So it's always going to boil down to something: safety, security, legacy for the family. It's going to get to that. You got to ask 3 or 4 whys. Why do you want to buy a house? Well, sick of renting. Why are you sick of renting? I don't like throwing away the money to the landlord. Tell me what it is about throwing away money on a landlord that's hard for you, that's frustrating for you. And you have this in an empathetic way like this. And they're like, I don't know. My family rented a house for all my life. We never owned anything. And my family still doesn't own a house. I want to be the first one to own a house. Awesome. What would that mean to you? I don't know, it'd be great to be able to pass on some money to my kids. And you're just digging a little deeper of like, okay, great. Once you feel like you got deep enough, like that's a real answer. That's really why they want to buy a house. You can stop asking why, and there's 7 different ways to ask why. What would that mean to you? Tell me what it is about that that's important to you. Why? These are all digging deeper into the motivation behind what they said. You need to know this, have it in your back pocket. So let's say they communicate, yeah, it's because I really want my kids to feel safe and to feel like they have a place that's going to be theirs, and it's not just some landlord's, it's their house. Awesome. So, Jennifer, may I have your permission? When we're out there in the streets, we're out looking at houses, you're going to run across houses that would do this for you. They would provide a safe, secure future for your family, but they're not going to have the countertops you want, and the carpet's going to kind of suck, and it's going to be maybe near a loud street. Do I have your permission when that happens to remind you of what we just talked about, so that we can make sure we actually get to what you're really trying to accomplish, which is not all that other stuff. It's trying to get you in a position where you can provide a safe, secure place for your family. Do I have your permission to remind you of that? And if you get that permission, you just got the tool you need to help them get out of their own way. And this is doing them a service, and I try so hard to communicate this when I do these talks. You need to get this in your soul, and the best way I know is to tell a story. I had these great friends. They were pastors at my church, wonderful friends of our family. They were putzing around trying to buy a house for like a year, 2 years in San Diego here. And it wasn't the perfect house, and it was going to be this whole thing, and nothing was right. They were renting. And I had a dream one night. Woke up in the middle of the night with this dream, and in the dream I felt like they were going to get left behind by the housing market because they got a fixed income. They're pastors, right? They're not making 20% more every year like realtors are or whatever, Like they're kind of fixed. But the market is going up 20% every year, and I was like, they're going to get left behind. And so I called them and said, hey, I think we need to get you guys a house like this month. Like, let's figure this out. And you're going to have to make some concessions. It's not going to be the perfect house, but let's get you on the wave. Let's get you riding the 20% appreciation wave. What would you rather have, 200 grand or the countertops you want? Because in a year, that house you want to buy is going to be worth 200 grand more. That's better. You can buy countertops with 200 grand. So can we go get you a house? And like, yeah, okay, all right, we'll get going. And like a week later, their landlord offered to sell them their house. And it wasn't the perfect house. She called and said, hey, what do you think of this? And I'm like, buy it. Like right now, get it done. Like, well, how much? She gave me the price. I'm like, that's fine, go ahead. I didn't earn a commission from this, had nothing to do with it. And she bought the house. And a year later, it's worth 180 grand more than she paid for it. And I'm very proud of that, because if I had not stepped in, she would not be in that house, guaranteed. They would still be dinking around. And you guys all need to take this seriously, because your buyers are gonna lose out. You have people right now you're working with where if you step in and if you move the needle, they have you to thank a year from now for $100,000 worth of equity, which nobody in their family has ever had. Like, you got to take this seriously. You have the ability to change people's lives. Could I be wrong? Could the market be falling apart? Sure, that's possible. I think it's very unlikely. I've done tons of research, and that objection will come up. People will say, well, what if you're wrong? Like, what if it's the market doesn't appreciate? What if the market crashes? My answer to that is always the same, because you can get into all the dynamics, and I have a finance degree, and I could talk most people under the table about that, but that doesn't matter. What I always say is, hey, I have been scouring, because I want to know too, right? If the market's going to crash, nobody has more to lose than me. I got a lot of houses, and the whole company's built on this. So I am scouring the world, looking for any source, any credible source that is predicting a market crash, and I cannot find one. Not a single credible expert that is predicting this. Do you know of any? And of course they don't. They're just afraid. And they're afraid because it's human nature to be afraid. Change is scary, and it's your job to get them off the ledge. So my dad was telling me this the other day. He's like, kind of a pessimist at heart. He's like, dude, you got to be careful telling people they're going to make all this money. I'm like, hey, I got to be careful if I don't tell them that. Because if I really believe they're going to be 20% behind in a year and I don't tell them, that's on me. Just as much as telling them and being wrong is. So you just got to be you. You just got to tell people what you really believe. So knowing their why will help you have permission to do that. So this is, more than any other market I've experienced, an emotional intelligence game. This is who is the most emotionally intelligent, who can be the most empathetic, who can care the most. Those people will win. That's why you're so good at what you do. You're a very caring person. I mean, from the minute I met you, it's like, this guy will just do anything for me, shares the whole playbook. Sit with my agents and spend an hour with them, telling them how to be good at what they do. That's why he's good at what he does. And the more we can really learn and really connect to this, the better we can do. Okay, so once you catch their why, now we're going to go through this jumpstart checklist. And this is now we're setting expectations. This is the nuts and bolts of selling a house. And so we're going to get them pre-qualified, do a battle plan, set them up on a search, whatever. I'm going to walk through all these one by one for you. And we're nearing the end here. So the first thing we're going to do, so when I sit down with them at the meeting, I'm just going to say, okay, here's the checklist. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to get you started, get you going. Now, by then, maybe they've already gotten pre-qualified with a lender. Great, that's all fine. Some of these steps may have already been accomplished. But we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is the battle plan. And this is the most important one. This is the one I'm going to spend the most time on, then I'll kind of breeze through the rest. So this is the absolutely critical part, is you got to have a battle plan with these people. And again, this may be something that some people, maybe you have buyers right now who they need to have this conversation. They've been beat up a few times. Some people just need to get beat up. They need to go lose a few deals to go, oh, okay, let's get serious. I got a good friend, another pastor friend of mine who texted me yesterday because he got smoked on a house. He's like, okay, dude, let's have a real conversation now. Sometimes people need to get beat up. That's okay. You can walk with them through a few. You could waste your time on a few offers if you have to teach them a lesson. That's okay. Might be worth it. But let's make a plan. And so I've walked through a couple specific things in here that I think are important, like let's get you pre-qualified. We have a little cash offer program. I know Dan's working on that where we can get clients qualified for cash using different vendors we have. So that's great. If you can figure out a way for them to be a cash buyer, awesome. Not everybody's going to be able to pull that off, but if you can, great. Create a love letter. We still use love letters. I don't know, somebody said something about we're not supposed to use them. I don't care. I think they're great. And we're not trying to discriminate against anybody. We're just trying to tell a story of who's buying the house. People are still emotional. They still care who buys their house. Let's get a love letter written. I have a template for it. They can Google, and it explains that in the sheet. Just Google love letter Gluck Group, and there's a template they can copy, and they make it their own, and now we're ready. And we just need to fill in the right address and maybe 2 or 3 specific things about the house. We got the love letter ready to go. So let's get that going. I'm going to skip a few of these things and talk about the most important things. Here's one. Be prepared to offer X dollars over the asking price, and let's set up your search accordingly. So this is the language I would use for that. Like, have you ever seen an auction on TV? Art auction, horse auction, whatever. You've seen an auction? Everyone's seen an auction. Okay, so what happens when the guy says $100 and he says, do I have $100? 85 people raise their hand. That's what's happening in the real estate market. That's what we're dealing with. That is the opening bid. And that's the language I got from Dan like a year ago. That's the opening bid. That is not what the house is going to sell for. You guys know this, but you need to communicate that to your buyers from day one, instantly, that they know that is the opening bid. That is not the asking price. The language is not even helpful. It's the opening bid. So how over asking price are you prepared? And this question doesn't even really matter. It's just an excuse to have this conversation because it's an irrelevant number. Like how much would you pay over asking? Well, as much as it took to get the house is what it really boils down to. But you're trying to get them to some number like, hey, okay, if I had to, I'd pay $100,000 over asking for the right house or 200 or whatever. Ideally, you get them around to the point where they're like, asking price is not it doesn't matter. I'd pay whatever it took if it was the right house and the right value. That's what you're trying to get them to, ideally. But if not, you get some number. I don't know, you'd pay $50,000, or at least you're starting somewhere. And then, next part, most important part. Remember to factor in that, second most important. Remember to factor in that your cost is X dollars a month, right? So you're just doing the math for them on, pay an extra $10,000 only cost you whatever it cost you a month, 50 bucks a month or whatever. So you can fill that in there. And then more importantly, appreciation is currently X%, meaning every month you don't buy costs you X. They have to know that number. That is to me like the thing they go to sleep at night thinking about is how much it cost them to not buy a house that day. But you got to get that in their head. Appreciation is currently 20%. You're buying $1 million house. It's like $18,000 a month, right? That's what it's costing you to not buy a house. I understand you want to support your brother. I totally get that. But the reality is, if we can get you with our lender, and here's why that really matters. Now, am I going to push like heaven and earth, move heaven and earth to get them to switch lenders? No. But I do want them to know that there's a real cost for every time they don't get a house that they lose because their lender screwed it up. They're using whatever, Bank of America in Chicago or something. Like, you got to get them around. So that number is so critical. And you got to communicate it empathetically, all this. You're delivering a lot of pain right now. Like, this market's hard. You're going to have to waive all your contingencies and all this crazy stuff. So you got to communicate, like, this will keep me awake at night. This $18,000 a month is no joke. Like, I care a lot about this. And then we'll get down eventually to here where we're going to talk about meeting with these people. So what I want to do is every single week, I want to have a meeting with you And what we're going to do is we're going to go look at houses every single week. And we're going to review off-market properties I've found for you every single week. And the reason is because that week cost you $4,000. And I care a lot about that. Now, I understand that's kind of intense, but this is an intense market. And I want to make sure we're on the same page because I can't be more motivated than you. So is that okay with you? If we check in every single week. And so we're trying to set an appointment every week. We're looking at houses every week. And because the point is not getting the perfect house. Now, some people are, like I'm trying to buy a house in Lake Arrowhead, me personally, but I don't really care if I get a house in Lake, whatever. If I don't get a second lake house, it doesn't matter, right? So for me, no, I don't want to talk to you every week. I'll call you if I see something. There are some people who are legitimately in that boat, right? But lots of people, like this is their first time home or they need to move up, they have a legitimate real reason to move, like they got to move. You need to get those people out of the framework of I'm trying to find the perfect house and into the framework of it's costing me $10,000 a month to not buy a house. So it's like, yeah, we'll go see a house every week. Absolutely. Like we'll find whatever. Good enough is good enough, And I was in this situation in my house in San Diego I bought. I made a ton of concessions on the house I bought during COVID because I just knew we needed a house. And we made it a beautiful house, spectacular. I love it, So you're getting that number in their head. You can talk through escalation clauses, earnest money. Here's a couple of little things that we figured out that are kind of interesting. Earnest money, right? A lot of times you're going to have to write an offer, no contingencies. Like your earnest money is 100% vulnerable. I would do that one of two ways. One is I would put some money up front that's vulnerable, whatever they can afford, $5,000, $10,000, whatever. And then if you need 50 to make it a real earnest money, the 5 or 10 grand is non-refundable right up front, and the rest after the inspection period or whatever, right? Maybe you can't even do that. Maybe it's got to be the whole freight up front. If that's the case, you're going back to that number. You're losing 18 grand a month every month we don't find you a house. So I understand we're putting 20 at risk here. Your earnest money, 100% at risk. But I think you're going to like the house. It's not that crazy. There's nothing super weird about it. I think you're going to love this. It's probably going to go through fine. But if it doesn't, it would have cost you 18 grand not to get this house because we would have lost out on it. So I get it. It's not a small amount of money. I take this very seriously. But would you rather put it at risk and have a real chance of getting this house or not even have a chance of getting it? And here's what's going to happen is you're going to have some people, you're going to have this meeting and the buyer battle plan you come up with sucks. Oh yeah, I have 3% down and no money in the bank. Awesome. Okay, that's not going to work, right? What do you do with those people? Well, you have a real conversation with them. Hey, listen, let's be honest. Your buyer battle plan, not so good. We're up against these people, these savages in the market, right? They're doing 100 all this crazy stuff. So we are not going to look at new listings. We will only look at listings that have been on the market 20 days or more. They're overpriced. That's it. Because your battle plan is equipping you to fight a very small battle. And so just be real with those people. Like, don't give up on them if they're legit and motivated and can actually buy a house. Just go find them an overpriced house that nobody's fighting over. A house that's on the side of the mountain or whatever. I don't know, whatever you got to do, right? Like, get them in something. So at least at least you're together. What's the goal of this meeting? Set expectations. So I think that's part of it is we're trying to help everybody swing in the big leagues and they just can't. They just can't. So they just need to have this conversation to get them to understand. And part of that is helping them realize you cannot get the house you want. But what you can get is $100,000 in appreciation this year. That sound good? You're trying to reframe what they want is what they see on HGTV. But that's really not what they want. What they want is that safety, security, whatever they communicated, that ego need, whatever it is, and that 100 grand will get them there. Will get them that. And so that's what you're reframing that process. This is the mental process I went through when my wife and I were banging. We sold our house in Coronado, spectacular, beautiful place, to move to East frickin' County, And the reason is because my kids go to school out there. We got sick of driving around, and I did not want to move. I liked Coronado. And I just knew, though, because we were houseless for a while, I'm like, this market I got to get in the game. And so we bought a house I didn't want to buy, and we made it great. And it's worth way more than we paid for it now. So you just need to get people to shift, to understand. Like, the reason I was doing it is to get closer to my kids' school. And so I made some concessions. And you got to help people do that. All right, we're nearing the end here. So we're going to get them qualified, and you got to communicate to them, and this is all on the actual sheet you go through with people. Hey, I'm going to set up an MLS search, or maybe you've already done the MLS search, or your IDX, whatever you use. You just need to tell them at some point, hey, I've talked all about these off-market properties. What I'm probably going to do is just sell you a house off MLS. So let's just make sure we're all on the same page. They're not like all bummed about it. Like, be real. Like, we're probably going to sell you an MLS house. Now, I really am going to be looking for off-market properties. If we find one, great. But this is probably what's going to happen. We need to get to these houses fast. Let me know. Here's the team. We run through our website, show them all the people they're going to work with at the Glutch Group. I talk through open houses. Hey, if you're going to go to an open house, they really need your contact info. Put mine in there. Just put in my phone number and make one up. Sign in with my info. I'll give you some cards. These are like salespeople repellent, my business cards here. Alert me of new builds. San Diego, this may be the time in the conversation in San Diego where you're talking about buying a new build because they don't make any money on new builds. And buying a new build kind of sucks too because you're going to get on a waiting list for a year and maybe not get a house. So do you want to play that game or do you want to go, we can get you one in a month. Like we can get you into a house ready to go. So this might be a time to reframe, again, their mindset of like, I got to get a new build, got a new build. Okay, well, let me tell you about that rodeo. And it is not fun right now. Here's how it works. And you're communicating to them this other path you have that is better for them and more lucrative for you. But if they're going to go see open houses, great. And would I sell an open house to somebody, or a new build to somebody who I was in the zero co-broke, which there are right now? Yes, of course I would, because it's not that much work, and now I got a client for life. You want to help them out. Take care of them, and they'll take care of you down the road. Absolutely, I would do that. When homes aren't perfect, remember your why. I'm going to remind them of the why they communicated in the beginning. So, hey, you're going to go see houses. You're going to be disappointed, I promise you. But that's okay. What you won't be disappointed by is the $100,000 you're going to make this. If you haven't gotten nauseous by me saying the same thing over and over again yet, you're not paying attention. Like, it's intentional. I'm trying to reset their mind to help them understand. Think in terms of things you can or can't change. And I just let them know, hey, I'm going to point things out that you might miss. I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to tell you. One of the things we did a word cloud for all of our reviews, of thousands of reviews. What are the things people say in our reviews they care about? One of the things that came up the most was that we pointed out stuff that they wouldn't have noticed. So I think it's smart to intentionally do that because I think the consumer is really happy that you as a salesperson are like, hey, that thing over there, you might not have noticed that. It's a bad thing. Just wanted you to know, hey, this road is, it's a pretty busy road. Just wanted you to be aware of that. That way they know. Okay, and let's see, weekly check-in. Again, this is probably one of the more important things, and I went through that language a few minutes ago. We're going to check in every single week, and we're going to go look at houses every week. And the reason we want to do that is because we're losing all this money if we don't. And you might find stuff you don't like, or stuff you like that you didn't expect to like. And we're going to be looking at off-market properties when we do that. Remind them of their money they lose for waiting. But then make sure you're on the same page because you might run into a buyer like me and like Arrowhead is like, no thanks, dude. I don't care how much money I lose. That's not the game I'm playing on that particular property because that particular property for me represents a lot of hassle and work and time and energy, and so I'm kind of okay if we don't get that house. That's a different kind of buyer. Just got to figure out who you're dealing with. And then making offers. I've got a bunch of stuff on my website, and you guys probably do too, on how to get offers accepted. Okay, come to Jesus talk. Last thing. This conversation you're going to have with your buyers who need to have it's too late. You're already working with them. You're showing them houses. You've lost out on offers. You have not set the expectations properly. They haven't learned their lesson yet. So you need to have a tough talk with them. And so here's how you do that very quickly. First of all, you got to get them on the call. So your goal for this one is to create a battle plan. You're not trying to get them to sign a VIP buyer agreement or whatever you do. If they haven't already signed one, that ship's sailed. Don't even bother. Just try to get them on the right page to get an offer accepted. That's what your goal is here. All right, so you want to sleep with your buyers. What does that mean? Well, lay awake at night thinking, what are they laying awake at night? What's their why? What are they worried about? You got to communicate empathetically. So before you have this phone conversation, this is going to be initially a phone call. Before you have the phone conversation, you got to get in their heads. What do they care about? You got to be empathetic because otherwise what it's going to come across as is you giving them just bad news, cold, like blaming it on them, blaming it on the market. So you got to get empathetic and then shoot them a text message. Frank, do you have a minute? And if they say yes, call. Or, hey, super exciting news about your home search, call me. Just trying to get them on the phone. Once you get, that's if they ghosted you, if they're not responsive. If they're responsive, just call them. So then you want to magnify the pain. Hey, I know this isn't working. I'm bummed as you are. This is back to the empathy part. Like, this sucks. I know we've 2 houses we've missed out on. It's such a bummer. And since we started, I did the math. We've actually lost like 50 grand in market equity. I'm really, really losing sleep over this. I'm super bummed. And so while I'm bummed, I also have great news. Our team just started this new thing we call it our buyer battle plan. Because you got to communicate that you got a new plan, you got a new thing. You don't just suck at this. You're not just reminding them of how bad a job you've done. Or bad a job they've done. You're letting them know you've got a new plan. So we got this great new thing we call it our buyer battle plan. And we just started using it a couple weeks ago, and we got 4 deals in escrow last week. It's working fantastic. I'd love to walk you through it. Can we jump on a Zoom or go to Starbucks together and work and create one for you? So your goal is to get them to a place where they'll sit down and have that same conversation. Now, in some ways, it'll be easier because you've lost, they've already had some pain. But what you're trying to do is they've been playing one game, whatever game they were playing. I don't know, the I have to be in that neighborhood game, or the it's got to be a 4-bedroom game, or the whatever. And you're trying to get them back around to the actual game that's being played, which is the you're losing $100,000 a year game, and make sure that they understand that. And so then you just have the meeting I just explained. This right here, if you do 5 or 10 of these this week, you'll have 2 deals in escrow next week, guaranteed. I have seen this happen time and time again. Every time I do this with my guys, and every time, next week, 2 or 3 of them are like, got a deal, because they had this conversation, and they'd had the conversation with like the FHA buyer or the whatever who couldn't get a deal. And they had the real thing of like, hey, this isn't working. We need to go look at old listings. I have 3 ready. Let's go. And they went out and they showed 3 old listings and they sold 1. This will get you escrows. So you have people right now in your mind that are coming, that are these people. So go out and do them a service, get them on the wave, and that way a year from now, when they've got equity and they can maybe, the wages are going up a ton right now. The job market's insane. Like inflation in some ways is our friend in this industry. Not always, but it's not that simple. But there are some real benefits, and I think if you guys can get people in houses now that they don't love but they're okay with, 3 years from now, your listing business is going to go crazy. Because you're going to have all these people ready to move up into that thing they actually want. I'm telling you, this will load your gun for years to come. I think that's it. Yeah, you just got to practice. This kid doing that thing. So you just got to practice. You just got to get good at this. Like he didn't figure that out in a weekend. So neither do you. You don't understand this yet. Like this is all getting with the team and dialoguing. Okay, let's do the 5-minute meeting. Let's run through a 20-minute meeting. And you guys have your own version of this. And that's great. It doesn't have to be exactly the same as mine. The principles are what matter. And if you listen to this recording 8 or 10 times while you're just driving around, you will pick up the 5 or 6 core principles that are what the building blocks of this. I give you a lot of specific tactical stuff that's kind of overwhelming. Okay, awesome. All right, guys, hope this was helpful. I'm around if you have any questions. And, it was a pleasure getting to speak with you guys. I really respect what you're doing. And thanks for having me. Thanks. You bet.